Zdravo and welcome to Slovenia, a country that against all of its wishes is located in Europe's Bermuda Triangle, known only as the Balkans, where instead of ships and planes, all progress, investments, people, happiness and futures tend to disappear. But unlike most of its Balkan brethren, Slovenia was able to escape the hellhole against all odds, which in turn has left the Balkan countries no other choice but to call them femboys as a way of coping. When counting by area, Slovenia is the 10th smallest country in Europe, and it garners a population of around just under 2.2 million. The overwhelming majority of the people that call this place home ethnically identify as Slovenian, aka femboy, which is at around 94%. The second largest minority, however, would be the Bosnians at 2.6%, followed by other mental illnesses such as Serbians and Macedonians, which together make up 1.3%. On a territorial level, Slovenia borders 4 other countries. To its north lies Austria, to its east Hungary, to its south Croatia, and finally to its west lies the country half of Americans claim their ancestry from, despite barely knowing how to cook a plate of pasta. Looking from far away, it might seem as if Slovenia has a nice little coastline leading out to the Adriatic. However, on a closer look, most of it was taken by Italy, because having an entire Apennine Peninsula as coast wasn't enough. Even though small, the nation is divided into 8 regions, those being Primorska, Gorenjska, Koroška, Štajerska, Prekmurje, Dolenjska and Notranjska, of which the capital, Ljubljana, lies in the south of Gorenjska. Because your boy is a poor little Serb that barely has enough money to buy bread, as most of it goes to donations to Western African countries in the hope that one of them will stop recognizing Kosovo, I was only able to visit Ljubljana. Thus, if you want more of Slovenia, make sure to like and subscribe, and share this video with all of your friends, and maybe even your grandma. There are several ways to arrive to Slovenia. If you are from an actual functioning country, the best way would be to fly into Ljubljana. But as I'm not of that luck, I had to come to Ljubljana via bus from Belgrade, which took around 8 hours. And if you are from generic brand Japan, it'll take you around 6 hours from Budapest. The capital itself is smaller compared to most other European capitals, as Ljubljana has a population of around 280,000, which is similar to the number of residents of Cluj-Napoca and Novi Sad. Like most European cities, Ljubljana was inhabited by humans ever since the Stone Age. However, the city itself wasn't mentioned until the 12th century, and at the time boasted the name of Laibach, as it belonged to the German interpretation of the Roman Empire, which was neither holy, neither Roman, nor an empire. Nevertheless, within the empire, the city was known for its art and the fact that around 1/3 of its population spoke some weird, barbaric, guttural tongue known today as German, and the rest spoke Slovene. For the most of history, the town was under the administration of the Habsburgs. However, after some Serbs shot some dumbass German tourists in Sarajevo and instigated the First World Trollage, the city and its surrounding provinces came under the control of everyone's favorite historical dysfunctional state, Yugoslavia. After the Second World Trollage, the city formed the Socialist Republic of Slovenia, which too was once more under the control of the now socialist dysfunctional state of Yugoslavia. With that being said, the country and the city itself have a vast history that is reflected in the buildings that decorate its streets. On the outskirts of the city center, you can find the Roman Wall, which reminds everyone of the previously mentioned extensive history. The wall is estimated to have been built somewhere around 15 AD, when Jesus was exempting every teenage boy from their favorite sin. Its purpose was to defend the settlement of Emona from incoming barbarians coming from the north. Opposite to the Roman Wall, a couple of blocks east, flows the Ljubljanica River, where you can find a river walk that spreads throughout Ljubljana and leads to the center of the city. Alongside the river, you can find sprawling shops, cafes, and restaurants, which in typical European fashion garnish the walkway. One of many bridges that goes across the Ljubljanica is the St. James Bridge, which leads to the adequately named Church of St. James. The church, as you can assume, is dedicated to St. James the Greater, who was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus and the first to be martyred. The church was built in the early 17th century in the Baroque style, which was the successor of a Gothic Jesuit church that stood here in its place. North of the church starts the city's old town, where you can see lively people sprawling around in a beautiful setting akin only to Central Europe. On both sides of the river you can find a plethora of cafes and coffee shops selling a variety of overpriced coffee to tourists and locals alike. What's notable to mention about Ljubljana's old town is that, which unlike most of Central European cities, which were primarily built in the Baroque architecture style, mixed in with some Gothic here and there, Ljubljana is characterized by the Art Nouveau architecture style, which gives it a unique look amongst its neighbors. Now, the reason for this aesthetic look didn't come out of nowhere. Prior to the 20th century, much like the rest of Austria-Hungary and post-HRE kingdoms, Ljubljana did boast a Baroque aesthetic. However, in 1985, an earthquake went BAAAH, which then heavily damaged the city. Afterwards, the city was rebuilt under the leadership of architect Jože Plečnik, who is accredited for how today's Ljubljana looks. One of the main traits Ljubljana center is known for are the 4 famous bridges running across the Ljubljanica. On the southern end stands the Cobbler's Bridge, which dates back to the 13th century. During the days of the HRE, the Cobbler's Bridge used to be made out of wood, and it hosted a butcher shop on it. But as you can imagine, meat in the Middle Ages wasn't really refrigerated, so it tended to go bad fast and give off a particular stench only akin to the streets of Pristina, that just so happened to bother the emperor. So the wannabe imperator paid the butcher $100 to fuck off. Afterwards, in his place came several shoemakers, and thus the bridge got its name. On the main crossroad of the old town is the Triple Bridge, which is one of Plečnik's most recognizable works in Ljubljana. The middle part of the bridge was built in the mid-19th century and as a replacement for a wooden bridge. However, the bridge got its other 2 branches in 1929 as the city was becoming swarmed by cars. So to get rid of some of the traffic, the citizens of Ljubljana built 2 additional crossings for pedestrians to free it up. Up until 2007, the bridge was used by both people and cars, but due to concerns of the bridge falling apart due to the weight of automobiles, it was pronounced a pedestrian zone alongside most of the old town. Right across the Triple Bridge is the Prešeren Square, Ljubljana's main meeting point defined by the colorful Franciscan Church of the Annunciation. The square got its name due to the statue of poet Franz Prešeren sitting in the middle of it, which many Slovenes will proudly proclaim how other cities have famous generals as statues, meanwhile they have a poet, which is some real fanboy shit if you ask me. Regardless, the story of the statue is quite hilarious, as it conjured some controversy. Considering Prešeren was a romantic poet, above him stands a statue of his muse, a topless muse. Now, you might be saying, so what, Janos? Europe is known for statues of naked people. And you're right there, but as I mentioned before, on the square is also a church, and considering a statue of a naked woman was right across it, you can guess what the problem was. After the statue was finished, the church's priest would try to cover it every day. However, it would be uncovered each time by a random passerby, which went on for days as a daily ritual for the 2. Frustrated with that, the priest decided to plant a tree to cover it up. I mean, who knows, maybe he wouldn't have minded it if it was a statue of a naked boy. Regarding the church itself, it was built in the mid-17th century in the Baroque style by Augustine monks. In the 18th century it was taken over by the Franciscan order, who remodeled it into what it is today. It stands tall and proud with its dark pink facade and 2 towers rising up from its roof. On the opposite end of the church, across the river, is yet another square, known colloquially as Mestni Trg, which literally means town square. At the square, several buildings of cultural importance are located, one of the first being the Roba fountain. The fountain you see before your eyes is actually a copy of the original, which is actually placed in the National Gallery, but it is nonetheless magnificent. Supposedly the figures in the fountain represent the gods of the 3 rivers that passed through Slovenia, the Ljubljanica, Sava and Krka. Meanwhile, the steps represent the Carniolan Mountains. Standing behind the fountain is the city's town hall, which was built in the 15th century. Throughout the years, the building changed its appearance several times. The original design was in the Gothic style, however today it is of Baroque architecture style with Venetian influences here and there. Within the town hall there are several exhibitions which you can go and check out if you're into that. East of the town hall lies the Ljubljana Cathedral, also known as the Church of St. Nicholas. Much like most other buildings in the city, the church stands on the grounds of a preceding church that was built sometime in the 13th century. The church you see today was built in the beginning of the 18th century in the, you guessed it, Baroque style. Moving on from the cathedral, we'll follow the Cyril and Methodius Square to end up at Ljubljana's defining landmark, the Dragon Bridge. On 90% of the magnets you can find for the city of Ljubljana, there is most likely going to be some reference to this bridge, and that is for good reason. The bridge is defined by 4 statues of dragons that greet passengers on both sides of the bridge. Locals tell the legend that Jason of the Argonauts was actually the founder of Ljubljana, and the dragon statues represent the dragon he and his crew killed. It is also said that when a virgin crosses the bridge that the dragons wag their tail. So if you're planning to go on a first date with someone, Ljubljana most likely isn't the best place. On top of the hill overlooking Ljubljana stands tall the Ljubljana castle. The castle itself dates back to the 11th century, however, the castle wasn't built to completion. Throughout the 16th and 17th centuries, the castle was continuously upgraded due to the fears of Ottoman invasion into Austria. After the defeat of the Ottomans, the castle served several purposes, such as being a weapons arsenal and later on a prison as well. The castle complex consists of an archer's tower, gunpowder store, Tower of Erasmus, a dungeon, and a prison for nobles. Several important historical figures used to be imprisoned here, such as the Italian revolutionary Silvio Pellico and the first Hungarian Prime Minister Lajos Batthyány. Of course, Ljubljana isn't all about medieval and Renaissance history. Like many of Slovenia's neighboring countries, the nation was also a socialist republic, which the Republic Square is a stern reminder of. It is easily recognizable by the TR3 and Ljubljanska Bank towers. The square was built during the days of socialist Yugoslavia and was intended to be the new city center of modern Ljubljana. When the country of Slovenia declared independence in 1991, it was declared upon this square. An honorable mention would be also the Tivoli Park, which is Ljubljana's largest park, but as you've heard me say plenty of times on the channel, if you've seen one park, you've seen them all. Nothing too special about the place other than it often has art exhibitions and a castle that serves as a gallery. And yeah, that would be Ljubljana, a city rich with medieval and Renaissance history from the HRE filled with some Slavic mix, because of which the people get made fun of by their Balkan brethren. It is the most functioning of the Balkan cities, located in the most functional Balkan nation. Let me know what you think. Have you been to Slovenia? Do you want to go there? Let me know in the comment section down below. And also tell me what countries you'd like me to visit next. If you want to help the channel, become a member today and earn yourself a shoutout like these wonderful people: Julian Apostases, Mickey D, Pavan, Anthony YouTube, and Roland S. You've watched Living Ironically in Europe, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, why are you leaving?